What if I told you that the richest lessons come from the emptiest hands? There was a man who owned nothing. Yet, he discovered something that money could never buy. What did he find on those cold streets that changed everything? His name was Samuel. Every morning, he sat at the corner of 5th Street, holding a small cup. He had been there for 3 years, same corner, same cup, same empty feeling inside. People walked past him like he was invisible, a shadow in a world that moved too fast to notice. Samuel wasn't always homeless. He once had a job, a small apartment, dreams like everyone else. But life happened. He lost his work, then his home, and slowly, he lost something even more important. He lost belief in himself. One winter morning, everything felt heavier than usual. The cold bit deeper. The faces looked colder. Not a single coin dropped into his cup. But sometimes, the hardest storms shape the strongest souls. That afternoon, a little girl stopped in front of him. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her mother tried pulling her away, but the girl resisted. She reached into her pocket and placed a single coin in his cup. Then she smiled and said something that shattered his world. "You have kind eyes, sir. Why are you so sad?" Samuel stared at that coin for hours after she left. One small coin. But her words, they echoed louder than any noise on that street. Kind eyes, sad eyes. When did he stop seeing himself as a person? When did he start believing that sitting here was all he deserved? The cup in his hand suddenly felt like a chain. That night, Samuel didn't sleep. He sat under a bridge, watching the river flow. The water kept moving, even in darkness. It never stopped, it never gave up. And then silence. In that silence, Samuel heard a voice, not from outside, but from within. It whispered, "You're still here. You're still breathing. That means you still have a chance." The next morning, Samuel did something different. He didn't sit down. Instead, he stood up. He walked to a public library. For the first time in years, he stepped inside a place that wasn't a street corner. He asked the librarian if he could use the restroom to wash his face. She looked at him, not with pity, but with quiet respect. She nodded. Samuel stood in front of the mirror. He barely recognized himself. But somewhere beneath the dirt and the beard, he saw those eyes the little girl spoke about. Kind eyes. He didn't win in one day, but he never stopped walking. Samuel started small. He offered to help clean outside a small cafe in exchange for food. The owner, an older man named Marcus, watched him work. Samuel didn't complain. He didn't ask for more. He just worked with quiet dignity. After 2 weeks, Marcus offered him a part-time job. After 2 months, Samuel had saved enough to rent a tiny room. After 6 months, he was training new employees. 1 year later, Samuel stood in front of the same corner where he used to sit. But this time, he wasn't begging. He was giving. He started a small project, bringing warm meals to those still sitting where he once sat. He didn't lecture them. He didn't judge. He just sat beside them, looked them in the eyes and said, "You matter. Don't forget that." Some laughed. Some cried, some ignored him. Few stood up, just like he did. Samuel never became rich. He never made millions. But he found something richer than gold. He found purpose. He found peace. He found himself again. Sometimes, losing everything is how we find ourselves. And that's when he realized failure wasn't the end. It was the teacher. The cup he once held wasn't the problem. The belief he placed in it was. He thought he was defined by what he had. But the truth, we are defined by what we choose to become. Samuel's journey wasn't about escaping poverty. It was about escaping the prison of his own mind. The streets didn't change. The world didn't change. But when he changed his mindset, everything changed. And it all started with a little girl who saw what he had forgotten, his own worth. Your circumstances don't define you. Your response to them does. You are not your failures. You are not your struggles. You are the courage you choose in the face of them. And that choice? That choice can change everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to share it with someone who needs hope today. Sometimes, one story is all it takes to remind someone they're not alone.